Well, it's about that time. What do you say? I gotta tell you, I am excited about getting back to work on this truck like many of you are. I've been missing out on it for about 4 months, which is about how long it's been since the last video I made for it, and we're gonna jump back into it. How do you get it? Yeah. Whew, that's it. So this video is going to be a little bit jumbled up. We're going to have multiple clips, a little bit of work on the frame, and it's just going to be a little hard to follow maybe, but basically it's a culmination of like 4 months worth of videos. So without further ado, we'll jump right into it. So the first thing I'm probably going to do is give you all a real quick tour, a refresher course, if you will, kind of where we left off with this in this truck, because I know you fellers probably watched at least 19 billion videos from other creators about all kinds of stuff. So to refresh your memories, where I'm at initially is I need to get basically from here on up to about the front of the transmission, right under the cab. I need to get that portion of the frame cleaned up the rest of the way, a few more holes punched, and body worked and painted. Now, as far as the body work goes, basically that's just filling in some areas of pitting. Most of it's totally fine, especially where there was nothing bolted to, it's perfect. But anywhere that sat under, like that tray that had the hydraulic tank on it and some other stuff, there's some pitting, and what was behind, you know, the fuel tank brackets that aren't going to be here no more. Basically, I'm just going to mud them up. So I need to get it cleaned, and then I can do a little bit of filler work, and then I can prime these sections and paint them. And the reason I want to do that is because I'm going to put my cross members back in, my fuel tanks, brackets back in, and my tanks are going to be polished. But cars never stop. Anyways, this section I essentially want to be done. That way I'm not having to try to paint around airlines and fuel lines and the tanks, and this is the time to do it. Part of that is I also have to take my air tank brackets, which are from a different vehicle, and need to get these sandblasted, painted. There's 4 of them, and then I need to get the holes drilled for them. Now my tanks, if you'll recall, got new holes for them. They're going to come to about right here, kind of basically where this body work was sanded off. So my air tanks, I'm going to mount like this. Basically they're going to be right here. So somewhere along in here I've got to punch the holes for them after I get them painted and everything, but I at least got to get the holes in there so I can paint the frame. So that's going to be my initial work that I do. So we'll go over a couple other things. So here's the problem you're up against with working on body work and stuff outside. See this? Every morning you get condensation, dust, all kinds of stuff in your work. Like you can see the holes I drilled for the fuel tanks already got some rust on them, just slight surface rust. But basically what this means is when it comes to filler and primer work, I got to do small sections, you know, because I have to do only a big enough section that I can get it sanded, cleaned up, and primed in one day, maximum 2, because I could, you know, on a Saturday clean up the frame rails and then wrap them in blankets in plastic so they don't condensate real bad. But they have to be at least primed after you get all the bodywork sanded. You cannot sand all this down and then leave it overnight. You'll have rust in it and you'll basically screw your work. All in there, nothing was there. It's nice and clean. Same with back there, but like I said, pitting along in here. So all these lines are going to get replaced, main air lines. So when I do the power washing, I've got to get in there, bust the rest of the hangers loose. Some of them already are, but basically I'm going to pull out all these little gizmos holding all the wires, get it all pulled over here out of the way so I can get a clean shot at priming and painting the frame rails. I'll also probably do cross member for the transmission while I'm at it. I've debated on painting the transmission, but I don't know. It's got some surface rust, so I don't know what I'm going to do there. That's probably going to take some wire brushing and some good cleanup. But for now, I need to get the frame rails done. This one has nothing in it, so this one's going to be super easy. Sorry, I'm going to make you dizzy. What I also have to do, in addition to the air tank brackets, is there used to be a big cross member right here. So, with my new fuel tanks basically going here, that cross member could not go here. So I got to move it back here somewhere, maybe a foot farther back, which isn't going to hurt anything. It's got one there. So there's going to be a cross member here, move back a foot. Got to drill the holes for it, which is 8 holes. Bang, bang, bang. Over to here, bang, bang, bang. Okay, and then my air tank brackets, wherever they will fit in there. They're a lot smaller holes, so that's the hole punching I got to do. But that's not going to stop me from doing, you know, filler work, priming. I just can't drill the holes after I've painted it because the mag drill will scratch the paint all up. So, see my nice transmission cover. More on the transmission and all that stuff here shortly. But also, I have 2 new castings that are already painted, but ready to go back on the truck. These ones here, as you can see on this side, I can't remember if the other side has it, but these have been broke and re-welded. So I've got 2 new ones painted, ready to go in addition to that guy, which you saw in videos a long time ago. So that has to be changed out as well. So that's why I'm probably going to stop the bodywork and paint like right here. I can do the back half later. I want to get in here and make sure there's no rust under there, so it'll just be a matter of unbolting all that, get it all prepped, get all that cleaned up, airlines done. Kind of need to do bushings there. You can see those are kind of whopper jawed out. I'll go ahead and give you a refresher on everything else on the truck real quick. Now remember, I got to do quite a bit of body work on this section here. You see the splits, pretty bad. I've debated on cutting, you know, potentially this whole back section out and then putting a new one in, but really I think just fixing those is going to be the easier option. Ultimately less work, but let's go up here. So one of the reasons for the delays is trying to find parts for this thing. So we already found the bumper, which I got a lot of time and effort in and money, but it's good. But now we're down to, you know, painting the grill, which is, you know, about halfway done. And our repairs on these headlight buckets, which I'm going to put back on so that I can, you know, get the block sanding and stuff squared away while they're bolted rigid. It's really hard to, you know, really use a foot-long block sander and sand them real good and flat when they're, you know, flopping around on a table, and they're breakable, they flex. Still gotta either buy a new set of these steps that go here or fix the ones I got. I'm having pretty extreme difficulty finding some of those. I was able to find latches for this, a couple sets actually, so I'm buying them both. There's just parts on this that are very difficult to find, and there's just no point in, you know, barreling ahead with a bunch of work if I don't have the parts. For example, this guy, see the rust in it? It's like, these don't exist anymore really, as far as like you can't jump on eBay and get one. But I have found, you'll see later, a source of parts that I'm absolutely thrilled about. So more on that after we get inside here and kind of show you where we left off here. Welcome back to the interior. So this is where we left off. We did a bunch of power washing here, got this all cleaned up. And I've just left it open here all summer, essentially letting it air out because this carpet was nasty. You know, all the junk been sitting in there. It did not smell pretty. Still not super minty. Now it just smells like an old, I don't know, U-Haul truck. Anyways, I'm gonna have to do a lot more cleanup here. That's really not, that's more staining than anything else. But I'm gonna get this whole section mainly cleaned up enough where I can shoot some epoxy primer on it and get it kind of a little more like that. That's like spotless. It's just ready for primer and paint. I'm a stickler for good interiors, so I really want to get this cleaned up and really looking good, you know, before I move on to all the exterior portion of the truck. So there's some things I'm gonna have to do. I'm gonna have to clean up the box that sits right here for the seat. I'm gonna climb in here and show you a few more things. Like I said, I'm a stickler for a nice interior. So this truck is an old farm truck. As you can see, and from earlier videos, she's been kind of, cosmetically, she's been used and abused. Mechanically, it's been very well upkept, but you would be shocked how hard it is to find plastic panels like these. Soft trim, stuff like that, not at all worried about, because that I can have faithfully reproduced and perfect. Like all the stuff here, no concern. The big curtain that goes here, no big deal. Seat covers, no big deal. But stuff like this, see this big old split in it, tabs broke out of it, you know. This truck has just been, you know, run through the ringer. Stuff's just broke, cracked, split. You know, this stuff is very, very, very difficult to find. Now, as far as these panels, I found a truck that was like 4 hours from here in the middle of a junkyard that had stuff like this that I can go pull it all out of. But most trucks, this stuff's all broke up, you know. They're over-the-road trucks, farm trucks or whatever. And just like this one, they've been used, you know, a couple million miles or whatever. So it's hard to find this stuff that's in good shape. A lot of it, you know, these trucks are sat outside, like this one has probably never been indoors. This plastic just don't hold up well. And that includes the dash. Like this one's mine. This is an Eagle, so it's got the nice vinyl trim. But underneath of this is just the formed plastic thing. This is what goes right behind me over the instruments. But like, look at this. I mean, the hard plastic underneath is just completely broke. See, hinges are broke. I mean, I can fix it, but obviously we have to recover it in vinyl. But I've been trying over the last year that I've had this truck to source all these parts, and you know, honestly, until recently, without much luck. This is what I do for a living, so not really complaining. Okay, on to the dash. So you're gonna have stuff like this. A bunch of the little bezels are broke, switches kind of falling out of the dash. You know, just average wear and tear, really. We've already pulled the climate controls out of it. You know, carpet's all out. Now the gauges is another thing that's kind of slightly annoying. That the tachometer there is all rusty. We got some mismatched gauges. That chrome one's not supposed to be there. Just a bunch of little stuff. I've been looking for parts, and it just takes what it takes. These bezels up here, you know, it's cracked. I want to have all this stuff restored and looking nice. And there's little speaker grill covers that goes over those. Those are nearly impossible to find. But just a bunch of little stuff. I've got to get up in here and seal the roof real well. As you can see, it's kind of saggy. Some of that's just falling down, but guys get up and they make penetrations for air horns, and the lights gaskets for on top of the roof fail. Water gets in here, ruins your headliner, seeps down, you know, gets in the floor, drips right in the seat, usually from these guys, from your air horns, ruins the seats. Happened on both sides of this one. I've also got to get in here and tidy up a bunch of wires, pull out a bunch of stuff that, you know, like that. It's like, what's this for? Anyways, get it kind of squared away, get rid of this kind of junk, and make sure that we ain't gonna burn this truck down. Well, hey fellers, so I got to take this stuff off here. get it off the frame rail. Just a bundle of wires, just a couple of bolt clamps. So I know you all have been wondering, what happened to the Cabover? Well, time, you know, money. Main thing has been, you know, over the course of the summer, I took on what wound up being a lot bigger project than I had planned, mainly for cosmetic reasons. Took on the LS swap in the van that's parked there behind me, and that took a ton of time. And then, more importantly, I lost both of my helpers, which you guys already know. So, between those two things, I got so far behind. I mean, I didn't have enough time even to work on the van, so that's why that took 3 months. So, unfortunately, this truck's sitting out here in the hot sun. I mean, it just got to sit a while. That's just the way it goes. Funny part is, my plan had been, you know, I had both of my full-time employees, you know. I'd kind of got to the point where we were caught up. Things were looking good, you know. I was like, all right, now I'm going to start working on my big projects, my Cabover, whatever. Spend, you know, at least, you know, 4 or 5 hours during the week working on it. That way I can make more progress than I ever have, you know, on it. And then I lost one of my helpers, and then I lost the other helper, and one thing led to another, and then there was no time to work on the Cabover. The other deal, like I've already mentioned a million times, is finding parts. So, anyways, kind of, I guess, making excuses is what I'm doing. But excuses are like belly buttons. Everybody's got them, and they ain't useful for anything. But this bolt's got some paint in it. I know probably a bunch of you are like, well, here we go. Another guy that tears a project apart and never does anything with it. Well, I can assure you that ain't me. I'm not the kind of guy who, probably put this one over here, it'd be better. I'm not the kind of guy to tear something apart and then never touch it again. Just not me. My line of work, I do this restoration work full time, not on semi trucks, but you can't just leave something set. Don't work that way. So I can be a starter, but I'm also a closer. Well, as you can see, I got all that stuff popped off the frame rails. They're really in pretty good shape. I mean, there's virtually nothing that I really need to do other than a quick scuff job. And as far as like filler work, I'm probably not going to worry about the inside. Mainly just the outside, just to clean up, you know, this stuff here. It's nothing I hate worse, you know, being a paint and body guy and a perfectionist. Seeing brand new paint on something, you know, right over this. I mean, just a couple of real quick skim coats of body filler, you know, $5 materials, make it look brand new. More like this. So, painting over that, come on now. Like, this is factory, that looks pretty nice. I mean, that's acceptable. This, not acceptable. Anyways, so that's just my pet peeve. Have to excuse me there. But probably what I'm gonna do when I paint is get probably right up into where that clutch linkage is, up to about that engine mount. And then on the outside, I'm probably gonna go and do the back side of the battery box. Obviously it's yellow, so it ain't gonna work. Same over here. I'm gonna come forward all the way and paint this. This is just surface scale or dirt, not sure which, could be both. But I'll probably paint the cab mount there, that whole assembly, and then the front side of this. Well, I guess it'd be the back side. Maybe the front side too, because it's all yellow as well. But I'm trying to find a natural break point. When they painted the frame rails, when they done all this, they went basically right to there. All that's fine. I'm okay with leaving that. But, you know, I don't like the yellow poking through. But that's what I'm going to do there. Really, at this point, I'm almost to the point of being able to power wash it. What I'm going to do is get in here with my scraper and knock this caked up stuff. Because I'm not going to use brushes on this at this stage. I'm just going to spray some real good degreaser on it and then just scrape it all off. There's a little bit there. One thing that's kind of a little bit worrisome, I don't think whoever had this truck greased this joint very much. That, or they just cleaned it, because normally somebody that greases this a lot, this stuff will grease will be slung all over there. And it's spotless. So I don't know what the deal is there. Hopefully the grease zerk on it is in good shape, but same here. So that would lead me to believe that whoever had this was not much of a greaser, or they just like to clean a lot. Now, this one, on this one, it has grease, heavy grease, all on the inside of this, which is okay because I got to take that off anyways to change those guys, or at least one of those guys. Well, probably do both since they're both painted, but so I'll pull that off and then scrape out and power wash that when I do it. But my paint on the back half of this will probably come somewhere to here, you know, to the rear of that. I just don't want to take that off until I get a cross member in here, because I don't want anything to move. In all likelihood it wouldn't, because it's bolted here and the suspension is in it, but I don't want to take two cross members out. It does have this one, which I'm not taking out. Okay, time for some scrapey scrape. If you just spray degreaser right on top of this stuff, I mean, it won't eat it off. This stuff is hard baked on there. Noisy pickup truck. Yeah, this stuff's been on here so long, you're just wasting your time just trying to, you know, power wash without doing this first. This don't take much time, it's not messy. The primary area where grease got on it was, you know, right where this hydraulic tank just leaked everything all over it. So I will have to do a pretty hardcore degreasing on the transmission assembly in the bottom of the engine, but you know, one thing at a time. Well, I'm to the point where give her a little soak. This stuff works really good. Purple Power Extreme. O'Reilly's don't normally stock it, but they can get it. It's probably one of the better spray on, you know, spray off degreasers that I've ever used, as far as, you know, not having to work it a whole bunch. It works better than like the foamy engine degreaser crap. So I'm just gonna give everything I plan on painting, and probably I guess the engine and transmission too, just a real quick spritzing. So I'll do a soaker down, let it sit there and mellow, and I'll spray it off and then repeat 2 or 3 times. Engine transmission's got quite a bit of caked up gunk on it, so don't expect much from that. I've really never done a cleaning on this thing really, so we'll see what'll come right off and what won't. Anything that's real dry isn't going to come off, but it would with a good steam cleaning. So I'm going to do a bunch of this for a while and bring you back and we'll spray it off, see what we wind up with. Probably clean up good. Well, this isn't really a power washer, but it does have a really tiny point and an easy shut off, and it's quiet, so try not to spray my labels. But anyways, let's go. I'll try not to squirt you. Well, my cleanup job went pretty well. Actually got quite a bit of crud and stuff and buildup off of engine, transmission, frame rail with relatively minimal amount of work. So, and transmission cleaned up pretty good. So, and I didn't put a brush on it, so I still got quite a bit of heavy degreasing to do on like the bottom of the engine, bottom of the transmission, but sides and everything cleaned up nice. Frame rails are really nice. As you can see, after I power washed it, you could see what needed work, like as far as pitting. This side's the worst. That side just had a little spot there on the other side where all those brackets were bolted. This side, primarily right here where stuff was bolted, there was some pitting, gouges. This is really all I'm trying to take care of. And you can see that, that's pretty bad. It's certainly not like thick. I mean, the biggest of these is maybe a 1/16 of an inch, but there's a whole ridge of it. Like something was bolted here that just totally trapped a ton of dirt. I mean, there's nothing here, just the strip right there mainly, and then on the top. So that's just what I'm trying to get rid of. This metal is just kind of porous anywhere, just by nature. I mean, you probably can't see it, but these are just big, thick stock, basically just rough steel. So I'm not trying to get all this stuff fixed, but that right there, you can tell is obviously rust damage. So I'm just gonna try to get rid of all that. Everything else, I mean, once it's, you know, sanded down, there's no bit rust or anything like that, like surface rust, then it's good to go. So this is really gonna take very little work, and the inside doesn't really have anything like this on it. So just this one section had it pretty good. So I'm gonna get that done. I'll sand it down. I might bring you back when I do the epoxy priming on the frame rails, but I am debating on going ahead and painting the transmission as well. Basically everything from like the bell housing back, everything from here forward, including the engine, I'll do like at a later date. But I would kind of like to get this section from there to here completely done. Like whenever I want to tackle this back half, painting and all that, I can just mask everything from here forward off, and then again, whenever I go to paint the engine, I can just seal everything from here back off, you know. That way, other than running new lines, I don't have to get in here again. So that's just my plan. Looks pretty good. Blow the dust off. I want to give it just a real light coat real first, initially. All right, now I'll give it a little heavier. Sorry, trying to look at my work and my gun. Don't see any bare spots. You? Looks pretty good. So if you fellas want to go back in time with me to roughly a year ago, 10 months ago, whatever it was, when I was trying to learn how to drive this truck, I was having pretty extreme difficulty in finding gears, you know, especially on the downshift. A lot of that was because I suck at driving big trucks. I suck at double clutching and all that, but the other part of the problem was I noticed after inspection that the shift linkage, the box itself, the shifter comes out of, had a tremendous amount of slop in it. Look how much this bushing, I assume it's a bushing, in there is worn. I mean, it's just completely ovaled out. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me look. It's totally oblonged up here at the top. So it's got a tremendous amount of slop in it. But here's the big problem. Look at this. I mean, it's got, where my finger is, close to an inch of travel just right here. It goes in, it goes out. And when you're moving the gear shift, I mean, it's just, U-joint, big long shaft, another U-joint, and then the dog leg shifter housing. All of that stuff had a lot of slop in it. The seals were all shot. So I figured, you know, that has to be a major contributing factor to my difficulty in finding gear. So it was bad enough that I was afraid to drive the truck for fear of, you know, damaging the transmission over something as stupid as worn parts. So as you'll recall, shoot, I guess it was back in around Christmas time, maybe before that, I pulled the shifter out, all that stuff, blew it all apart, pulled the top off the transmission, put that wood cover on it, sealed that up, and a good friend of mine, who's a wizard machinist and all that, very graciously took all my parts here, made parts fresh that should pretty much alleviate 90% of the slop or more in my shifter, and hopefully prevent me from blowing stuff up. So I'm gonna bring your little eyes in here and I'll show you what we've got going on. So, all right, so get your little eyeballs in here. This is upside down, but this mounts right on top of the transmission. This is your gear selector, goes right into the top of the transmission. This is your shaft that goes up to the shift box, this little guy from a big long drive shaft. Now, as you already saw, this is the shift housing assembly. It's already painted and everything. You already watched me do that. The shifter comes right on the top of here. It's just a ball and socket there. Goes down and sits in here and operates these shafts here that come out of the back. Now, the biggest problem with the shifter had been that this thing was just absolutely shot. This little cross pin goes in here, and that the shifter kind of does this number on it. The original shift handle that came with the truck, the hole that this rides in was oblong so bad that the shifter would essentially move up and down here where it's not supposed to. It's supposed to be locked in pretty tight on this. And I don't know if you can see it or not. See those shiny spots in there? Kind of see them. Anyways, oh, there you go. The bottom of the shifter was actually dropping so far down that it was digging into the bottom of this box. So you're trying to shift gears and it's just sliding and digging into these deep grooves and catching, you know. So I know that was causing a problem. And you can see here, this pin's not straight, it's oblonged. So my buddy, I still got to cut it to length, but we got replacement shaft for that. I need to cut it to the right length. So that'll take care of the slop. And I used a different shifter handle. I had one of these that I ordered from a buddy of mine named Ed down south in Tucson, I think it is. He sold me one of these. I wasn't able to use his housing because one of these ears was cracked, but his shifter itself was in a lot better shape. So we used that and a couple other little bits from his. Now these will tighten up this crap. Now the biggest problem was the shaft that comes out of here, which is one of those guys. But basically it had just completely oblonged and would just do this. If you'll recall from the video clip I just showed you 2 seconds ago. This was the bushing that was in there, just completely blown it out. And it had worn so severely that you can see that little eye lip down there. That's how far down that shaft had worn. The bottom of the bearing was gone. It was just eating into the shaft or into this housing. So we rebushed it. This bushing is like that long. So, I mean, with a lot of grease in it, it should be okay. Eventually it'll start wearing, but let's be honest, this truck's not going to have 1,000,000 miles on it in my possession. But other part of this was this shaft here is the one that goes in here. I don't know if this one will fit because it hasn't been fit to this one. Anyways, it goes in there, comes out the end like this, and the U-joint attaches there. Now, as you can see, this shaft, well, I don't know if you can see, it's got a huge, you can see it with my hand there. See how badly bowed and worn out? That's just metal that's just been removed from just years. It's a huge step right here. Not to mention the wear on the other spots, but this is severe wear. I mean, there was really no no way to fix that. So what I did is the one from my extra box that was from Ed, I took that thing apart and I cut these welds off and separated this. And my buddy basically took and I bought some stock rod, like 2 or 3 feet or whatever it was, and he made a brand new one, welded it back into this one, the holes drilled in the right place. So this, brand new, and then fit it to this guy, pretty tight. Once we get some grease in it, it'll be, that sets in there like that. The shifter goes right down into that hole there. So this just goes like this, forwards and back as you change gears. So what's gonna happen now is my shifter's not gonna be digging into the bottom, so that'll get rid of a bunch of the grit and the grab. More importantly, this has absolutely no slop. You cannot move it up and down more than maybe like a 64th of an inch. It's a tight fit like it's supposed to be. So we're not gonna have any of this bloop, bloop, bloop junk, at least until I put a bunch of miles on it and it wears in again. Now I've still got to heat treat the shaft, but this is pretty much ready to go. I also have here the correct SKF seals to go in here, seal that box up, fill it full of grease. Same for this guy, same seals. Now, this thing did not exhibit as severe of wear, but you see this shaft here that goes across. See your gear deal there, and then it rotates this way. And that goes like from whatever it be, 2nd, 4th, 6th, that movement. So my buddy also made this shaft from scratch. So it's brand new as well. So this is a pretty complicated piece to make, really, in my opinion, but I'm not a machinist. He made this brand new, so this has got somewhere, it wasn't severe, probably could have been used okay, but we had the metal and he had the time, so there's some grooves cut in it. But made that from scratch, so that's pretty cool. So I also have to heat treat this one. I probably don't have to, but I'm going to. So the combination of these new shafts, new bushings, these have new bushings as well. That should eliminate all of the slop that we can possibly eliminate from my hand into the top of the transmission. So if there's a little bit of wear in the transmission, we may still have some issues, but I have a suspicion most of my problems are going to be squared away here.